Hello, welcome to the Jones Zone. And today is more Star Wars. So, before we get into it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and check out the Facebook and Patreon links in the description below. Let's get on with the video. So, what I want to talk about today is the state of Star Wars at the moment and what I think they should do. Now, I'm not saying this is what everyone's opinion's going to be. I know everyone has different opinions. But this is just where I personally stand at the moment with Star Wars. So, since the Disney Star Wars content started, I have enjoyed most of it. I liked Rebels. I liked The Force Awakens. I really liked The Last Jedi. I really liked Rogue One. I thought Solo was okay. Where it falls apart for me is The Rise of Skywalker. I really did not get on with The Rise of Skywalker. There was stuff I like, but the only reason I liked it was because it was really fan service heavy. But not in terms of just adding in fan service and sacrificing the story. All that stuff was really bad. It was stuff like, the Star Wars theme playing when the Millennium Falcon flies up and all the ships from Star Wars are all cool visual cues that I'm just like, oh, I really like that because it's Star Wars. But it meant nothing to the overall plot of the movie. So what I think should happen now, and I don't necessarily think this is what's going to happen, is movie-wise, I think they should give it 5 years. Now, we know they're not giving it 5 years because we're getting a Star Wars movie in 2022, I think, or 2023. We're getting one quite soon. And the reason I think they should wait 5 years is because they should give it 5 years to find the right creatives and write a story for a trilogy before going in to the movies themselves. Because what is very evident is that the new trilogy had no story, had no overarching story. Whether they said it did or not, it absolutely 100% didn't. And when you see what Colin Trevorrow's episode 9 was going to be, which was titled Duel of the Fates, we were robbed of a really good Star Wars film and a really good solid conclusion to a trilogy that was just basically made up on the spot. Which is like, if we'd got Duel of the Fates, I think we would all be going, this is quite mad that they, didn't really come up with an overarching story to begin with, and they still managed to pull off a coherent trilogy. But the thing is, The Rise of Skywalker just sort of really heavily laughs in the face of The Last Jedi. It tries to just negate things that a lot of people didn't like. Now, a lot of people didn't like The Last Jedi. I always think there's sort of two kinds of fans when it comes to Star Wars. And it's sort of like, as well, with just movies in general. There are people that like twists for the sake of liking twists. And then there's people that like twists and turns because it makes the story fresh and interesting. It keeps it moving whilst giving you something unexpected. I think I've probably fallen on the latter because The Last Jedi made me feel how I felt watching Empire Strikes Back for the first time. And it's having things happen that you're not expecting. Like in The Empire Strikes Back, you're not expecting the Empire to be on the front foot the whole time. You're not expecting the big Vader twist at the end, which I'm not going to say in case people haven't seen Star Wars. I mean, if you haven't seen Star Wars, that's pretty insane. But yeah, and Last Jedi does the exact same thing. Every time you think something's going to happen, it left turns you, and it gives you something different. I just think The Last Jedi was a cleverly done movie. The problem is, there wasn't an overarching story for the trilogy, so therefore, what did we expect? We were obviously going to get a final film that didn't work, and there are so many reasons why it doesn't work. It's over reliance on fan service. It's it's really over reliant on almost trying to be like the Avengers Endgame of Star Wars, which is not necessarily a bad thing if that's what you planned for, but they didn't plan for that. That's what we got last minute. And even the film we got isn't J.J. Abrams' like ideal cut. There's like stuff missing. And now that we've had the Snyder Cut situation, which I'm working on a topic that's all about the Snyder Cut, so you'll see that in the future. But now that we've had that become a reality, I'm so worried that we're gonna get release the JJ cut of Rise of Skywalker, release the David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. I mean, we get those campaigns of things. You see those hashtags on Twitter, but I'm so worried that studios are now just gonna do it because it seems to be like the popular thing to do now, and that's why I never wanted the Snyder Cut. I didn't not want it because I don't want to see it. I am very intrigued. I will watch it. It's the notion of giving fans too much power. But we'll circle back round to that when we do the topic of... It's going to be something like when the fandom has too much power. Yeah, so I think the films need a break. And the big reason why I think the films need a break is because The Mandalorian is excellent. And The Mandalorian came out the same year as The Rise of Skywalker. And you've got Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau at the helm of that project. And I think you should let those shows flourish. And then we've recently heard that Taika Waititi it was either in talks or he was signed on to direct a Star Wars movie. Great. Good, solid choice. I think your Star Wars creative team should be Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, Taika Waititi. That's what I believe. And I think what you should do is, sign Taika Waititi on to direct the next Star Wars film. And then when Mandalorian Season 2 and Season 3 are, written, done, filmed, ready for release, which will probably be once production can go back into the swing of things, that won't be long, because it took them next to no time to film all of Season 2. They sort of just did it really quietly in the studio. No one was aware, and it was just done, and it's, gonna hit its October, November 2020 release date, which is insane. And once they've got that really into the swing of it, they can then focus on doing the next trilogy of Star Wars films. And I also think if you have Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, who are two people who obviously really, really, really care about Star Wars, helming the creative side of things, then they will know who are the right people for the right projects, who will work for say X film and who will work for X series. Whereas that seems to be Kathleen Kennedy's biggest downfall. She's an amazing producer, but I think her biggest downfall is vetting the right people for the right jobs. Because considering how many films Disney have made since acquiring Star Wars and how many directors they've actually fired more directors than they've made films, which is crazy. They shouldn't be firing that many directors. And by what we can tell, the only two directors that she's ever seemed to get on well with has been J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. And even with J.J. Abrams, they couldn't have gotten that well with Episode 9 because it wasn't J.J.'s actual cut that we saw. So I think with Star Wars, you need to take a softer approach to it, I think. Because it's obvious they want it to be like the MCU. They want it to be as successful and as popular. The problem is, with Star Wars, you can't have a film year. You just can't, because people get bored of seeing a Star Wars film every single year. And the reason for that is there's not enough different places to explore in Star Wars. Star Wars always feels like every sort of location is very similar. I mean, think about the amount of desert planets, the amount of ice planets, the amount of forest planets. There are so many similar planets that you begin to sort of run out of things you can do. Whereas with the MCU, because all comic book characters live in such different worlds, the MCU works way better at doing that. And that's why we can have 2, 3, 4 Marvel movies a year, because every film is so different, yet they all fit together. Whereas I think with Star Wars, you need to be having a Star Wars film every 2 years, and then in between you can have things like The Mandalorian, The Clone Wars, Rebels. You can have all your different shows, whether they're animated or live action, and that's your MCU element essentially. That is what you do with Star Wars, so that people are getting Star Wars content every year, but they're not being overloaded with it, because the general viewer will probably just go and watch the movies. They might not necessarily watch the shows, whereas the diehard fans will watch the shows, and it tends to be the diehard fans who want more Star Wars. And I believe that is the way forward. Will Disney do that though? Probably not. I'm quite worried about Star Wars in the future, because after episode 9, I came out of the cinema for that one, and I just didn't care. I just didn't care about Star Wars after it. And any time lately that I've seen a bit of Star Wars news drop, I've just been so uninterested. The most interested I've been in Star Wars news has been stuff related to The Mandalorian Season 2. And that's because I really love that show. And again, The Mandalorian actually is a great example of how to make Star Wars feel a bit different. So yeah, this is probably a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I really wanted to get this Star Wars stuff off my chest, because I love Star Wars, but I think it needs a bit of a break. Not necessarily, and again as well, not necessarily a break in the sense of there's no new Star Wars for a year or 2 years or 3 years, just a break of the films. The films need breathing room. In order for us to get another really good trilogy like the original trilogy, it needs to be planned in advance. George Lucas essentially had episode 4, 5, 6 planned. He had ideas for episode 1, 2, 3. He had episodes for 7, 8, 9, and there are even times where he said he's had ideas for 12 movies. George Lucas knew what he was doing when he made Star Wars. He knew he had 4, 5, and 6 planned out and ready to go. And that's why the original trilogy works, is you can tell it was planned. Whereas the newer trilogy just wasn't planned. It's just simple as that. It just wasn't planned out. Which is its biggest downfall. And that's why we just need bit of breathing room so that you can get the right creative people to properly plan a Star Wars trilogy, and then maybe we'll get a trilogy that is just as good, if not better, than the original trilogy. And that's all I want from Disney now, is I want them to make a proper planned out Star Wars trilogy. And now that they've got no restrictions as to it has to tie into the Skywalker saga, because out of the blue they decided to end the Skywalker saga. Okay. But yeah, now they've got no restrictions and it can just be set wherever they want and be about whatever they want. Now is the time to plan a really good Star Wars trilogy, because you're essentially in George Lucas's mind when he first conceived of Star Wars. You're now in a position where you've got a real clean slate and you can do something really interesting. That's going to be it for this video. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, Facebook, Patreon. As always, I appreciate it. And I'll see you tomorrow. I'm not sure what the video is tomorrow, but I'll see you tomorrow. There will be a video. Yeah, so thanks for watching.